Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you're all well on this lovely sunny Wednesday. My name is Matt. I'm going to be guiding you through today's quick learn on Sage 50 accounts, which is all about, as you can see in front of you, batch invoices and credits. So it is a quick learn. So today, maximum is going to be around about 25, 30 minutes at most. Probably going to end up some time back on that one. It's quite a brief subject to be covering, but there's a couple of interesting tips to share with you along the way. What am I going to be covering today? Well, first off, we're going to be doing an introduction to the invoices and credits section. Where is it? What can you do? And how to enter a batch and its differences to entering invoices manually or individually, should I say. Then straight into the demonstration. It's majority of going to be demonstration today, just so you can have a look and see. My advice is, if you can, open up the program and click along. Open demonstration data though. Don't do it in your live data. You don't want to affect anything that you're doing currently. So if you can, open up demonstration data and click along on one screen, and you can listen to me on the other. After that, some further support, point the directions of where you can get further support with any other queries that you've got. But with this being a quick learn, it is exactly that. It's just quickly learning something or refreshing your knowledge on something that you already know. You never know. So the rules for today are still the same as a normal webinar. You're automatically muted, so don't worry if you need a cough or sneeze. You're not going to interject anything that I do whatsoever. I'm not going to be able to hear you, so don't worry. Also, you can send me your questions. It's only me today, so please be patient. If you ask a question, I will get around to answering it within the allotted time. If not, I'll email you afterwards with an answer. And also, if I struggle with an answer, I'll email you afterwards once I've done some research into it, because you may have questions on the subject matter. I do prioritise answering questions on the subject matter first. Anything else will be answered afterwards anyway, to be fair. There isn't a handout today, because again, with it being a quick learn and looking at a demonstration, this is something that you can just click along to, or look at the recording afterwards to refresh your memory. So the recording will be sent to you an hour after this webinar is finished, and you can just watch that when you like, essentially. Completely up to you. So first things first, we said introduction is what we're going to be looking at. That's exactly where we're going with this. So batch invoice credit. Now, batch invoice or credit, it's basically just a quick way to record a transaction against a customer or supplier account. Now, they only appear on the account activity of the customer or the supplier. They don't appear in the invoices and credits section. And I'll tell you for why. Because that is, when you do it in the invoices and credits section, you're creating like a digital copy of a paper invoice. With batch invoice and credits, you're not creating that digital copy. You're basically just registering an activity against the customer and or supplier. So if you've issued, let's, for example, real world, say, you write down your invoices on paper the good old fashioned way, and you hand it to your customer or your supplier, you're not going to then duplicate that invoice on your system. You might just batch input it so it records the activity. And that will appear, as it says in front of you, as an SI, a sales invoice or sales credit, or a PI, PC, purchase invoice, purchase credit, depending on which way around that you're doing it. And again, when you are doing batch invoices, you don't get the benefit, if you want to call it that, or the option is a better word, of being able to email or print it off. You're just recording that activity against that customer or supplier. So it's a different way of doing things, and it can be a quicker way of doing things rather than individually typing out invoices. And we'll look at the demonstration now in order to go through what I mean by that. So in this demonstration, again, top tip, click along if you can. Also ask your questions as we go along through this. I will pick them up when I can and if I can, but if you do think, oh, Matt, could you just show me that again quickly? We've got 20 minutes in order to go through this, so please don't be shy in asking any questions whatsoever. We're also going to briefly look at how to enter a batch invoice. We're just going to concentrate on the invoices in this demonstration because it's the same applies for the credits at the same time. So whatever happens in column A, just presume it can happen in column B as well. It's a safe assumption now because it's the same mechanics. We're also going to look briefly at transaction grouping, which is a hot topic when you're entering batch invoices. And again, I'm going to look at the mechanics of that and the cans and can'ts of it and how you can record transaction grouping. A lot to take in, I do appreciate that, but again, you have got the facility of asking me a question as we go if we get lost along the way. So without further ado, let's open up my program here in front of us. As you can see, stationary and computer mode UK. This is demonstration data. You can break this as much as you want in your program. It will not affect anything. You can create random customers, random transactions. Hopefully you're all familiar with it. It's chock full of customers that have just been made, suppliers, exactly that, fake invoices, nominal code structures all default in there. And this is where we're going to be practicing doing what we're doing. So you would think invoices, batch invoices, credits, well, of course we want to go to invoices and credits. Well, no, this is where you would do singular invoice or a singular credit. For batch, you want to go to either the customer or the supplier. Okay, so if we're in customer, and forgive me again if I'm telling you things that you already know, these quick learns are designed for beginner level all the way through to intermediate. So I do appreciate some may be far ahead of this and some may not be, but we try to cater for everybody. So we are in customer. Okay, along the top here, you've got the choice, invoice, credit. We're going to go invoice. And this brings up this screen here, which is your batch customer invoice screen. Same screen if you were to go to suppliers, just in a different section, different module as we call them on the left. So customer module, batch invoice. And this is where everything kind of starts to piece together when you're doing a batch invoice. So let's say you've got a lot to record for several different customers, not bothered about the paper copies or the digital paper copies, as it were. You would just enter the details. So essentially what I'm going to do here is just use some test accounts, okay, that I created. So I'll say test one. I can attach an invoice or an attachment here if I wanted to, just by clicking on the button. Browse, maybe it's a receipt, maybe it is the photograph of the invoice itself, or a scan copy, or even an email copy. You can attach it here if you wanted to. The date automatically populates to the date that the program recognizes. Okay, so today, with it being the 13th, unlucky for some, it's picked up obviously the 13th of August. The reason I'm mentioning that, you may think it's silly, but the reason I mention that is because if you leave your Sage on overnight, and some of us do, let's face it, then you come back at 9 o'clock in the morning, this may still say the 13th, and it may only update to the 14th later in the day, because the system hasn't been closed down and reopened, so it may not have twigged that there is a new day formed. It's just the mechanics of PCs and how they work, same across majority of software. So always be careful, if you do leave your Sage running, just to double check this date. But the date of the invoice we're going to leave the same. Next interesting column, and I never thought I'd say those words ever, but the next interesting column is the due on. And the reason this is interesting is because by default, it's 30 days in your program. So if I bring up my test 2 account here, I'm going to search test 2, there we are. You can see 13th until the 12th of September, that's 30 days. However, this one is 15 days. Why is that, Matt? Well, that is because I altered this on the customer record. You can do this also on your supplier record, okay? So this date, this due on date, will pick up whatever terms you've agreed to and have input on your customer record. And if somebody needs me to show you that, please send a question in. If not, I'm going to gloss over it. So you can see that these two dates are different. Sage, from a test 1 customer, has gone, had a look at the customer record, noticed that it's set to 15 days after the invoice for the payment for this customer, and it's automatically updated it there. So I don't have to worry about checking when test 1 is due or when test 2 is due. So that's why that's an interesting column. It relies on the customer record. By default, 30 days. I've altered it. Same with nominal code. It's gone to 4002. Again, it's picking up exactly what I've set it to. Department as well. And you've got the reference and the details, etc. Now I'm going to go back to this reference section. So if I clear that again, and we're going to start with test 1. Pharma company, the date's correct, due on date. I'm going to put in reference 001 because that's the invoice number, for example. It could be any reference that you require and how you process, but for me and how I process, that's the paper invoice number, the 001. Extra reference, you can put anything here. Crisps, for example, it's completely up to you. That extra reference is just if you need it. Nominal code, obviously where it's going. Department is selected again from the customer record. This is defaulted to department 1. Project reference is exactly the same. If it's part of a project, you can select which project it's part of if you use projects. If you don't, forget it, not relevant. Details, again, this is completely up to you. It's a free form column, so you get up to 60 characters to type in some details there. For example, let's give you real world. Let's just say the extra reference was crisp, odd delivery, not their usual delivery. You could put in there, any kind of detail that you need. You could also put products, or was it a service? So I'm going to put products in this one, nice and easy again. Net, this is another interesting column. So I know that this was £120 in total gross, but I don't want to sit and do the calculations for net, VAT, and gross. So what I can do is say, right, it was £120, and then I can press F9 on my keyboard, or I can click and calculate net. And what that does, automatically calculates what the VAT should be in order to get the gross at 120. That saves a headache, doesn't it? So you can type in total invoice, whereas I'll do a magic number 19123. Do me a favor, Sage, calculate what that would be net. Okay, so it was 182 net. The VAT on it was £9.11. Now you might be thinking, hang on a minute, that VAT rate's a bit weird. Well, that's because, again, on the customer record, I set this customer's tax code to T5. I did that, and Sage has just recognized it. So this line here in the information that I've input for you is just to demonstrate essentially that this all pulls from the customer record. So you've got your non-code department, you've also got the VAT, what it means, and also the due date. Now, if we go to the next, let's say we're going to do for test 2 here. Okay, you can see it's 30 days, and this is going to be 002. This is also going to be products, and it was £200 gross. I'm going to calculate the net, Tier 1 tax code, 20%, as I've got it. So the VAT is 33.33 recurring, gross is £200, the net is 166.67. There we are, nice and easy. Now let's just say I also have a service on that real world invoice. What I would do is test 2, same date, okay? So what we're doing now is we're telling Sage that this is going to be the same invoice, but it's a different kind of product or service. The reference is still 002, so that's matching, okay? Nominal code, correct. But this time we're going to put in a service. If it'll pick it up, there we go. And this, again, we're going to say, well, it's just £100. Calculate the net for me. What happens next is I go to the next line, and essentially it will group these two together because it recognizes them being on the same reference invoice. And that is called transaction grouping. If, though, I wanted to do test 1 again, okay, and typed in 001, and then typed in products here, and let's just say 200 again. 200, calculate net. It won't link these two together, even though the details are the same. So the payment date's the same, test 1 and test 1, okay? The due date is the same, 28th, 28th. Reference is the same, 001001. Nominal code, products, the amount doesn't really matter. But the reason it's not going to link those two transactions together is because I've input them incoherently, so they're not on concurrent lines. The lines have to be joined, if you know what I mean, one above or below the next one, in order for Sage to recognize them as a linked transaction. And if you're thinking, well, I've just entered 500 different lines here and I forgot I've left one thing off, you would go to where that invoice began and click insert row. Then I could type in the details and then it would become a linked transaction. So essentially, just like you would on Excel, you're inserting a row. Calculate move. Look at that. So this is now linked to this. So now you'll be asking, Matt, why is there a warning? Well, if we highlight this warning, Sage is now saying, hang on a minute, this is potentially a duplicate. It's reminding me I've got to remove this. So I'll just remove it. Gone. There you are. So this is now linked to this, and this is now linked to that. And remember, these aren't going to be, when you click save, they're not going to be visible in your invoices and credits module because you're not creating that digital copy. When I click save here, the only place that they're going to be visible, because they're not here, you see, the only place they're going to be visible is in your audit trail here, which is transactions on the left. As you can see, the SIs have all been created there. Or, more commonly, you would look for the customer in question. So let's say test 1, and you would have a look at their activity by clicking on activity at the top or right click and selecting activity, which is there. It's a lot easier to use these bigger buttons for me though. With my age, it's easier for me to find, if I'm honest. So I'll click on activity and there we have it. Now you see what's happened here is previous invoices that I've input with a reference of 1, and I did these earlier today, these are on singular lines. Even though they were input on the same day, they're on singular lines. But these, I linked them by having everything match. And there's one line, but as we go to the bottom, 2 parts to the activity. That's a lot to take in, I do appreciate. But these have been entered earlier today, so they're all individual. The ones that we've just entered in during the demonstration, we linked them. So there they are. One line up here, because it was one transaction made up of 2 separate invoices. Any questions on that so far? If we go to test 2, you're going to see very much the same. So if we go to activity, one I entered earlier today, 1236, transaction number, no reference, no details, that was just the one. But now we've entered this, which had the date matched, the due on matched, the reference matched, as you can see here, nominal code, products, service, all matched. The details not necessarily important. It's these bits that are important, the date and the reference. If you type in the same dates and the same reference, Sage is going to pick it up as that it should be combined on the same invoice, same transaction. So what we'll do, if you are clicking along, let's just make something up here. So we'll go batch invoice. First off, we'll go to test 2 again. Everything is correct. Reference 004. Just making this up again. Net 100. There we are. Again, forgive me for going quick. This is just a demonstration for you. If you do need me to slow down, just mention it in the comments, all the questions. I'm just inputting some data for you here. 004. 100 there. Calculate the net. This line's potential duplicate. I'm going to ignore it because it's not. What I'm going to do here is put products. What I'm going to put here, service. Even though it's saying, oh, it's a potential duplicate, I know it isn't. So I'm going to ignore it. Then I'm going to continue with test 2. This time I'm going to put a reference in of 005. I'm going to say it's a service. But again, I'm going to say it's £100 gross, calculate the net for me. There we have it. So we've entered 3 invoices here, or 3 lines, should we say. 2 of them are going to be linked. One of them is not, because it's on a different reference. So these are on the same invoice, physical, in real life. This one was not. Click save. Save will warn me. Potentially these are duplicates. It's easy because I know they're not. In the real world, you might see them as duplicates, but in this instance, they're not. Let's click on OK, close that, and then we're going to go straight to that customer. Look at their activity. And here's how it's registered again. Now you see 004 is made up of that product and service. 005, which was entered on the same batch, but because it had a different reference, wasn't linked to these 2. Hopefully that makes sense. So good question coming in from Charlie there, is can we create items for details drop down simply by entering them? Picking up a memory is how that works. So be careful because it will remember spelling errors as well. But if you were to type in, the brain freeze there, apologies, create, okay? And then I test 2 again. Hopefully it won't make fibber of me, but there is create. And that wasn't there before, was it? We all know that. There was only 3 options. So if I do that again, you'll see there's only 3 options, and it's historically what I've typed in. So it remembers what you've done. Again, just to demonstrate it, test 2, type in here, just type Matt in. I'm not shy. Then we go test 2 again. Come down to here. If I begin with M, look, there's Matt. So it's all just about remembering essentially what is going to be in there. And now if I do 007, everybody's favorite. And again, forgive me for the sake of this, just going to put everything as 100. You don't have to use this F9 button, it's just I'm getting used to it. No, it's based on, oh, sorry, Charlie, I'll just repeat your question. Charlie again says, is it based on supplier that it remembers on? No, it's just based on whatever you type into that column. So it's not, because you could enter any details into here. If I did test 1, I'll demonstrate that, yeah. Good question. So test 1, and then skip along. There you are. Mad. So it's the column that remembers it. So not to get too technical, but I am a former tech, but not to get too technical with it. The details column remembers things that has been input in it, not particularly for the customer or the account or the supplier, just for the column itself. It's called column memory. So this column now remembers that I've input create, Matt, product and service into it. So regardless of what you put in this account section here, if I'll go completely, and let's say Fred Bryant, for example, and I go to type in Matt, it's there. Correct. No, it'll be for future as well. So Charlie again asked, but it will only be for that batch, not for the future. No, it will remember. It will remember it. So if I go out of this now, let me just delete these rows. remove that row, remove that row. I click save. Obviously, I'm ignoring the duplicates. And this is a new batch. In fact, what we'll do is we'll come out of here, we'll go to customers, and we'll go batch invoice, go to details. As soon as I type in capital M, man. But if I was to type in just lowercase m, it wouldn't pick it up. So hopefully that's answered the question there. Again, any questions like that, keep them firing in. It's what these quick learns are all about. But essentially, that is your batch invoices in a nutshell. It's quite an easy mechanic to use once you've mastered it. You can even memorize batches. So let's just say I've got the same couple of customers here, and let's say this is a full row all the way down here, and it happens every single month. I can just memorize it, save it somewhere, and then click recall. And when I click recall, it'll bring up previous invoices, batch invoices that I've made, and I can select the ones that I've memorized. So if test two's got 50 different products and services on the 1st of January, and test one's got the same 50 different services on January, I can type it in as a batch, memorize it, save it, and then on the 1st of February, when that order comes in again, click on recall, select the memorized one for test one and test two, oomph, it'll all populate here. All I've got to do then is just check line by line to make sure that everything's keyed in correctly. Bit of a game changer, batch and customer invoice, because it's a lot easier to do that when you've got multiple coming in than it is to go new invoice, do it once, close, new invoice, again. So yeah, so hopefully you gleaned some information from that. Maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know, maybe it was just a refresher, but hopefully you got something from that, even if it's just being able to use these quick filters up here. And having a look at the activity that way. It's a lot easier than scrolling, isn't it? But anyway, I'm droning on here. So that's the demonstration all over and done with. Batch invoices and credits. Credits got the same mechanics. Works exactly the same, so have no fear. You're not missing anything just by looking at the invoices. Apply the same methodology to your credits and you're going to be absolutely fine as well. Remember, before you do any kind of mass inputs, any batches or anything like that at all, I always say it, take a backup. Always do it. Because if this batch invoice goes incorrectly, it's easier to restore to the point before you input it than it is to try and unpick what you've done and then go wrong by deleting something that shouldn't have been deleted, etc., etc. Just the easiest thing to do is to start again, especially when it comes to entering large amounts of data and invoices as well. Further help and resources are available at sage.co.uk/help. So if you want to jump over there, type in any topic, Sage 50 related that you can do, and we're going to have some information for you. So have no fear, all done and dusted. We've got everything covered for you there. Also, if you need one-to-one training, it is available, bespoke training. Contact this email address down here for a quote. But that's kind of classroom learning, where you'll get one of our geniuses who'll contact you. I think it's up to 7 people at a time in the same room, and they'll deliver hour block sessions to you on how you want to process, not generically like I've shown you there, but essentially they will show you how you want to process. If you say, oh, this is how our business works, they'll come up with a way to make it work in Sage for you as well, step by step, nice and easy. Other than that, thank you very much. If you've asked a question, I haven't been able to answer it, I do apologise. I'll get back to you by the end of the week. It's just me working on this today. So I'll try and tidy up all the admin and get in touch with you separately. But we are now officially out of time. Please complete the survey for me. If you have got a further question, even ask it in there and we'll get back to you. But we do read every single comment. So please fill that in. It means a lot to us. Other than that, I'm going to leave you for the rest of the day. I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for the badged event. Bye for now.